Beyond the Waves is a Hail Hail Media production. It may contain sweary words, and adult situations may be discussed. If you're in the company of underage temps, turn up the show now and listen back later. If you'd like to get in touch with the show, email us at beyondthewaves67@gmail.com. You can also find us on Twitter at BTW Celtic Show, or you can join our group on Facebook at Beyond the Waves. Hail, hail, and keep the faith.
In the song, Celtic 7 and Rangers 1. All my days I will sing in praise of the Celtic team that played that day. Sammy Wilson put Celtic 1 up in the final of the Scottish League Cup, and it was only Neely Mohan's due when he nipped in and he made it too. Oh, Hampden in the sun, Celtic 7 and Rangers 1. All my days I will sing in praise of the Celtic team that played that day. Geordie Neville was all at sea. He couldn't stop McPhail from making it 3. And then young Billy Shorty made it 4. And Celtic were heading for a record score. In the sun, Celtic 7 and Rangers 1. All my days I will sing in praise of the Celtic team that played that day. Geordie Neville with the desperate dive, he couldn't stop Moken from making it 5. And then young Billy with a superb flick, sure he completed a great hat-trick. Oh, Hampden in the sun, Celtic 7 and Rangers 1. All my days I will sing in praise of the Celtic team that played that day. Then just to make the Rangers sick, Fernie made it 7 with a penalty kick. And Charlie Tully, sure he's on the ball. He's taking the rise out of Ian McCall. Oh, Hampden in the sun, Celtic 7 and Rangers 1. All my days I will sing in praise of the Celtic team that played that day. Oh, Hampden in the sun, Celtic 7 and Rangers 1. All my days I will sing in praise of the Celtic team that played that day.
Welcome to the Beyond the Wave Celtic Football Show. My name is Graham Wilson, and today we are going to be taking your calls as we always do, looking back on the 4-1 victory against the Cousins of William. Ah, yes, it's always lovely to welcome them to Celtic Park. Hopefully the toilets didn't take too much wear and tear, but wouldn't be surprised if tomorrow the reports come out that there is vandalism and destruction from that corner. But fantastic result nonetheless after the winter break. I think the winter break really, as was displayed today, really did pay off for the players. I think they really did need the time off to recharge and get their minds back right and set. Fraser Forster maybe maybe he slept a little too long. Maybe had too long of a lie-in. We need to look into one of those comfort mat pillows for him, just to support that gigantic neck of his, with the bolts coming out and everything. I kid, Fraser. Joining us as always from Perth Amboy, New Jersey, it is the Rev. Hail, hail, Rev.
Hail, hail. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you as well. Did you have a chance to see the game this morning?
I did. I was a bit hungover, but I did my best.
Well, it tends to happen Saturday morning, early here on the east coast of the United States. Lovely weather. It's, what is it, mid-50s?
No, it's maybe 45, if that.
Oh, sorry. Well,
yeah.
Here it's a lovely crisp 57 degrees, which I think, I don't know what that is in Celsius, maybe 13, 14 degrees Celsius. So, lovely day, but we have some cold air coming through. What is this, the Weather Channel? Like I said, 4-1, fantastic performance. I really think, you have to give pass marks plus to pretty much everybody. As I mentioned or alluded to there, Fraser Forster out of the starting lineup today with a bit of a neck strain. It was assumed that maybe he slept on it wrong, maybe had a little crick in his neck, as sometimes happens, typically happens. He's away for a scan, but they don't think that it's too serious. So hopefully that holds true. Neil Lennon mentioned after the game that he might be a doubt for Tuesday. So, obviously going up against Dundee United, they're going to have a bit more firepower than what we saw today from Hearts. I mean, their leading scorer, John Sutton, on 4 goals. They averaged less than a goal a game. They've only won 1 game on the road this entire season. So this is a Hearts side that's reeling. A bit unfortunate for us to give up a goal. It was sort of a freak thing, a deflection off of Charlie Mulgrew. I'm not sure, if Fraser Forster was in goals, I'm not sure that he does stop that. I mean, obviously he has a wider wingspan, so to speak, and I think he has a better range of motion than Zaluska and certainly better instincts that he's developed over the past couple of years and couple of seasons. But to make that comparison, I think might be a bit unfair to say that Fraser Forster would have stopped that. Not much that Zaluska could have done, especially looking at it on the replays. It wasn't moving all that quickly, but Zaluska was completely out of position for that. Wasn't really expecting it to come in. Nonetheless, it did make for a few nervy moments there in the second half, but Lasad putting it away and putting the game out of hand, essentially with a fantastic finish there. Gary Hooper also, just showing why he is so important to this side and why I believe there's absolutely no way that he's going anywhere in this transfer window. There's obviously a lot of rumor going around this week, lots of news this week, in spite of, this being the tail end of the winter break. We had the game at midweek against Bucharest. I was corrected that it was it's not Stoya. I like calling it Stoya for whatever reason.
Stoli Bucharest?
Yeah, Stoli. I think that fits in nicely. Obviously, Celtic may have an issue with it and may have to issue an apology or something that's customary. That was an interesting one, wasn't it, Rev? It made for a bit of confusion there, and I think it was at the hands of STV. There on the morning of the game, it came out STV had essentially plagiarized a Romanian paper that said that Tony Watt was interviewed by said paper, said that he didn't know anything about Stoya Bucharest or Romanian football, and Celtic being absolutely mortified by that being reported and that conclusion had issued an apology, and it turns out it was none of it was true. Celtic hadn't apologized, and many of the quotes, come to find out, STV retracted the story not long after they had posted it. that many of the quotes were in fact incorrect. So great job, STV. Keep it up.
Well, they didn't even retract it. They just pretended it didn't even exist, right? They didn't even, issue an apology themselves.
No,
just deleted it. Didn't happen.
Yeah.
Move along, Timmy.
Yeah, exactly. Which is, a lot of the sort of tact that they use in dealing with issues that pertain to Sevco and that pertain to their current standing and their current place, their history, etc. And, they like to fancy themselves as being fair and objective and everything else with that. I mean, fair play to them for taking it down. Quite honestly, I don't think that they had any alternative with it. I mean, they were made to look like mugs, and to leave it up, I think, would be, catastrophic. But, oh well. So we had the game against Steaua Bucharest, and I wasn't expecting much. I mean, I was sort of in and out of meetings. I caught the full game on replay afterward. And, let's call it what it is. It's a glorified fitness exercise, if you will. Just trying to maintain some fitness and mental sharpness, I guess, for a lot of players. We also saw Anthony Stokes return. What were your thoughts on the midweek game and just sort of its importance and some take? I mean, obviously, the Sheriff returned and he scored a cracking header that essentially won us the game. And there's certainly some questions now, especially at striker with Stokesy returning, Bangura coming back. Miko is, in my opinion, absolutely finished. But what were your takeaways from Bucharest?
It was, like you said, just a training fitness game, a glorified, like a not friendly, like just a fitness.
It's like a bounce game.
Bounce game. There you go. Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, if we would have lost, whatever, but I think everyone played pretty well, for just kind of trotting out there. I don't think anyone really, played out of their skulls, But it was good to see Bangor. I've slagged him, you've slagged him, pretty much everyone has. And
the Parrot has not, for the record.
Okay. But, it's, same thing like we said with Sammy and Scott Brown when he went through a slump. Hey, if you're, as long as you're playing well, we won't, we'll take back what we said. And if he just had a weird, hard time adjusting to Celtic at first and he needed to get some confidence and, went to AIK and now he's coming back and he's going to, banging goals, then, hey, whatever, I'll take back what I said. But, good for him. I'm glad he scored. Hopefully that gives him some more confidence being like, yeah, I can, come back into the team, score some goals. So I'm happy for him. Everyone else, it was good to see, Zalushka get a run out and goal.
He's a bit of a bomb scare.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. He's a decent shot stopper and he's serviceable most of the time. But he's just good for one of those mental lapses every game, and it seems to come in the worst of times. I mean, I don't know if you can call today's goal a mental lapse. I mean, yes, he was out of position, and yes, he wasn't the quickest to react. And again, like I said before, I'm not so sure it's even worth making the comparison. Would Forster have saved it? I think it's a bit unfair, but. Just looking at his body of work, I don't trust him. I certainly don't trust him as a number one, and even as a deputy. He can cost us points. I firmly believe that. Whereas Forster gets us points. That was clearly indicated, as we talked about, from the Motherwell game. It was because of Fraser Forster that we got 3 points from that Motherwell game before the winter break. It's
because of Fraser Forster we've advanced in the Champions League.
No question about it. Absolutely. Those results against Barcelona, he was hard done by. If we would have walked away from the Nou Camp with 1 point, it was clearly because of Fraser Forster. And so I think that the gulf between Fraser Forster and Lucas Zalushka is so huge that if we were to be without the services of Fraser Forster, especially in those Champions League games, I think it could be costly. But anyway, also want to say, we had a passing of a Celtic legend this week, and we just want to say rest in peace to Sean Fallon. Sean Fallon was the right-hand man to Jock Stein for all those fantastic Lisbon Lion seasons, the 9 in a row. He's been a presence with Celtic, through his playing career as well as his coaching career. Quite appropriately, in hindsight, he raised the flag this season, opening day, and it's sad to hear that another Celtic legend has passed. So rest in peace, and thoughts and prayers go out to his family. Obviously, we opened the show today with Celtic 7, Rangers 1 from that infamous day, and he had a great part in that victory and that Celtic side, as did Jock Steen from that same era, playing for Celtic. So rest in peace to another Celtic legend. Had some fantastic displays today from the Green Brigade. First saluting Sean Fallon, which I think was superb, and then I don't know if you got a chance to see this, Rev, but the displays having a go at Hearts, Flats, Glorious Flats, obviously alluding to Tynecastle being turned into the Gorgie Flats, I thought was fantastic. There was even one banner that said, we we built the bonfire and Hector lit it.
Yeah, I didn't see it watching the game, but I saw the pictures of it after. It was pretty good.
Yeah, no question.
Class as always.
Absolutely. We're fully behind the Green Brigade, in spite of any sort of stick or pelters that they seem to receive from, those who feel entitled to let us all know that their opinion applies to us all and is how everything should be. And anybody who disagrees is clearly wrong. So anyway, for all of their faults, which there are some, and I'm not going to go on at length, about the faults of the Green Brigade or their rascals or whatever. The fact of the matter is they turn up week after week, put on a fantastic display, and it's brilliant to see. I cannot wait to come over myself. It's a couple weeks away, I guess. It's I don't have an updated calendar because I'm lazy, but it's not going to be long. But yeah, I can't wait to go over and see firsthand, what it's like and what the atmosphere is like that they generate. Had a bit of mixed reaction from the Rocky Bats interview, Rev. I mean, everybody was complimentary as always. Listen, Rev, people love you. We got loads of great feedback from our discussion last week talking about the Magners issue, and I think that you touched on it and delivered the points quite well. But we got some mixed reaction from the Rocky Bats interview. We had a lot of great feedback and people who enjoyed it, and even some people who got in touch and said, he's not my favorite, but it was interesting to listen to. But we also had a few folks, I'd say 4 total, get in touch and say, Jaggy Bunnett on Twitter said, breaking orbital bones, jaw bones, etc. It's not for me. I had to turn the podcast off. Fair play. Obviously that sort of topic and that sort of discussion isn't for everyone, especially if you don't take the context for what it is. I think some people were offended or put off by their impression that Rocky Bats is just some guy that walks into bars, tries to find Rangers fans, and beats the hell out of them. And it's obviously that's not the case when you get into the context and you listen to it. Fair play if violence isn't your thing, even in sort of self-defense. But, we had a couple of comments that I thought were really just well out of hand. People, creating hashtags is a terrible show, and it's an embarrassment to Celtic. I just have no time for it. Absolutely no time. I'm completely open to constructive criticism, or if your opinion is that it's not for me. But some of the hyperbole that was thrown out there, especially from people who fancy themselves to be partners in the Celtic online media community. It's just the terminology that's used. And let's be honest, these people are trolls. Nothing more, nothing less. They're trolls. They sort of fish the message boards and Twitter for to try and throw out insults and raise the ire of whoever it is that they're talking to. And I have absolutely zero time for it. It's my New Year's resolution. I'm just blocking anybody who's going to engage in that sort of stuff. It's, if you're going to just harass me for 6 hours about why I block somebody, I have zero time for you. You're gone. And, and that's that. So, Rev, you never have to block anybody. People just love you.
Usually. No, I don't know. I probably get more from my non-Celtic talk than my actual Celtic talk.
Yeah, especially in the chat room talking about your Jersey Devils, but we'll leave that to one side. Talking about the game today, finally, let's get to this. By the way, if you're listening in, if it's your first time listening in, we are open to anyone. If you'd like to get in touch, add us as a contact on Skype at Beyond the Waves, all one word. Just Skype us. It's a free call, Skype, whatever. I don't know what the verb is, but get in touch. We're hoping to hear from everyone today. Get your thoughts on the game. Obviously, much more positive. It seems like we've had a run of shows after games where the performance was lackluster. Maybe we didn't get the result, but it sure is nice to be able to come on the air 4-1. Just phenomenal. I mean, especially the first 20 minutes. I mean, it looked like we were going to put 8 or 9 goals up on the board, didn't it, Ref?
Oh yeah, I thought we were going to just run away with it. I mean, we got a satisfying scoreline in the end, not even worrying about the own goal, that it is what it is, and, didn't play any part into the game itself. But no, I was expecting, 2 up, 20 minutes in, 25 minutes in, whatever. I thought we were going to, run away with it. Everyone, can't fault anybody for really how, anybody played, passing marks across the board. It'd be hard to pick a man of the match for me between, Matthews, Hooper, Wanyama. I'm trying to come up with another nickname for Wanyama. And the only thing I could come up with, it's, just has a, negative connotation to it. But I want to call him like the janitor, because he just sits in the midfield and cleans up everyone's mess.
Oh, Jesus. Are you serious?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm
call me Butter, because I'm on a roll.
No, but that's like you just saw him. That's not all he did today, but just
Wanyama's gonna need one of those like tool belt clips with the keys swinging off of the belt loop. We'll get Wanyama a belt loop and get some keys swinging off the side because he's gonna clean up. That's borderline racist, Rev.
Wow. Well, I didn't even take it there.
How dare you? No, I know what you're saying. The parrot likes to call him the snowplow, which would be appropriate for many parts of the UK and Scotland. But it looked cold today at Celtic Park, and quite a bit dark. I would think, especially for a 3:00 kickoff. But I guess that's that time of year. But there was a funny tweet midweek talking about. I guess it was somebody from Manchester United or a Manchester United fan who was saying that Victor Wanyama is in Manchester for talks on a move to United, and they had a picture of it, like an actual like Sherman tank. I mean, and that's it. I mean, he is a tank, and no question about it. He is. And I talked about this on the Celtic Dream Show last night with Big G. He could walk into any EPL side just now, any EPL side, and not miss a beat. And I think that Manchester United, out of all of the EPL teams, could benefit the most from Victor Wanyama. Let the bidding start at $12 million. I would set that as my bottom level bid, and we'll start from there. I mean, if United paid $12 million for Carrick, Victor Wanyama's value is certainly greater than what Michael Carrick has provided for that side. And I don't want to get off on a tangent about analyzing Victor Wanyama's utility in the EPL, in spite of the fact that I'm currently in the middle of that. But he was absolutely superb. His first touch has improved so much. I mean, just in the span of this season. And I think a lot of that had to do with his seasoning and experience in the Champions League. His awareness that he really needed to step up that part of his game, and he's improved in leaps and bounds. Obviously, his pace and his change of pace is what I find the most sort of breathtaking. Especially if we're caught on the counter and the ball goes through the middle. I mean, he does such a phenomenal job of slowing down whoever it is that has the ball. He'll put in a foul. He'll still break up play if he has to. But in the tackle, he has gotten so much better. Not that he was even bad to start with, but I mean, just what an improvement that he's made over the time that he's been here. And I mean, we could easily be talking about a world-class player by the time he's done playing. I firmly believe that. But while he's here, I mean, if Juventus are sending their scouts up to watch Celtic in the SPL or otherwise, they are shitting their pants when they see Victor Wanyama go through the middle of that park, especially with a half-fit Pirlo at the moment. Word coming from Italy is Pirlo is sort of suffering from mid-season fatigue, coming up with the typical niggling injuries, especially for a player of 32, 33 years of age that you'd expect. So if we have a maybe half fit or not fully fit Pirlo roaming the center of the park and having to deal with a player like Wanyama, I think that the advantage that Juventus would have had at any point is surely neutralized. Another player that made a return, obviously midweek against Bucharest, but then came in today, and I thought put in a fantastic shift, was Joe Ledley. And I always sing the praises of Joe Ledley. We talk about Gary Hooper being in the last 18 months of his contract. Joe Ledley's in the same spot. And, we talk about the sort of frailty of Gary Hooper, and we'll get into that whole situation here in a minute. But, the need to ship Gary Hooper on, while he has some value. I think the same holds for Joe Ledley. And I'm not saying that we need to ship him on. I'm saying we need to offer him a contract. He's absolutely essential. I think every bit as much so as Gary Hooper. You see it when he's out of the starting 11. You see how much we miss him. I thought his utility was exceptionally valid and valuable on the left-hand side today, linking up with Emilio Ezagari. Izzy takes so much stick. We see it on Twitter. I mean, I've thrown out lots of tweets talking about, is Izzy... I threw out a tweet the other day, and I was shocked by some of the responses. Is Izzy as bad as Lee Naylor or Danny Fox or Telfer? I mean... just as a comparison, because a lot of people like to have a go at him, and I've referred to this on the show before. I think it comes from the perspective of the expectations that Emilio Ezagari is just going to pick up and be that player of the year player that we had 2 years ago, in spite of the fact that he's had a long layoff through injury, and he's lost a lot of his confidence through that. He's playing back into it. It's not going to be an overnight thing, but I think if he's not there, he's really close. And today was another example of that. I think that his service into the box was exceptional today, in many different circumstances. But I think a lot of that has to do with how Izzy links up and the personnel on the pitch. If Sammy is right above him or right in front of him, it's very difficult for any left back to try and predict where Sammy's going to be. Izzy plays the best with those 1-2s to try and set himself free, get past the opposing fullback, and then swing a ball into the box, and he did that exceptionally today. And Ledley was really the fulcrum that Izzy was able to operate on. Like you said, Matthews on the left, on the opposite side rather, was absolutely superb. Some of that one-touch stuff between him and Brown was just sublime to watch. And his service in for Hooper's goal, it was tremendous. It was reported that he had a bit of a groin strain at the end of the game, or he was subbed out. So hopefully that's not anything too serious, because I think he's absolutely vital for this Juventus side, for this Juventus tie, rather. And I'm going to be doing a lot more analysis of this Juventus team as the time grows near or closer. It's hard to do a full-out analysis at this point. We're still a little bit too far out because we're not really sure, is Juventus... Are they going to lose more players to injury or suspension, or not? Obviously not suspension for the Champions League, but injury, and are they going to bring other players in? It's reported that Llorente from La Liga has agreed to join Juventus in the summertime, so he's not our problem, which is good news because he's an absolutely cracking player. But I think that the fullbacks are going to be really just an absolutely vital place for Celtic to be able to square up to Juventus and make sure that we're going to get behind their wingbacks, because that's really where they get sort of their attacking flair from. Either they have wingbacks that will match up against an opposing fullback, take the ball down the flanks and whip it in, and what that will inevitably do is open up space for their midfield three. Remember, they're going to play a 3-5-2. Their midfield three to have plenty of space to play football in. And that's what they did with Chelsea, and they absolutely ripped them apart. It's absolutely imperative that we, and I don't think it's an issue of setting out to sort of stifle them. I think that we have enough sort of bashers in the middle of the park as well who can eat up loads of ground and be able to neutralize that. I don't think it's so much stifling them, but finding Sammy for that out ball when he can get in behind the wingbacks, because they have a tendency to get stuck up the park. And if we have the courage to... I think it's an issue of setting up to sort of stifle them. I think that we have enough sort of bashers in the middle of the park. Okay, I'm listening to myself. Jerry, make sure that you have your speakers turned down and give us a buzz back. So I think that's absolutely vital. Making sure our fullbacks give us the width, and then have those sort of out balls. You saw today, Sammy was absolutely superb, running onto a ball. The worst thing that's going to happen with Sammy running onto an out ball is a corner. That's it. I mean, he beats his man, gets down, close to the byline, tries to whip the ball in. Worst case scenario, we wind up with a corner. And in the Champions League, we've been just absolutely deadly from corners. So, there's a lot to look forward to. There's a lot to be positive about. It's quite sort of the counter to going into the winter break. I think it did us a world of good. We'll welcome Jerry back, and hopefully we can get the audio. Jerry, do me a favor and just turn down your speakers if you can.
I think I've done that now, Graham.
Okay, perfect. Hello, mate. Thanks so much for calling us. What were your thoughts on the game today? Certainly a good feeling, coming out 4-1 against Hearts, and certainly a lot more positive vibes coming out of it, no?
Oh, miles better, Graham. I think, strangely enough, at 2-0, I thought they played reasonably well throughout the game, but it looked to be petering out, which has happened so much in the SPL this season. And when Hearts scored from that deflection, I said to my mate that I thought this would make the game more interesting. And I thought, they stepped it up a gear. And I think I tweeted earlier to you that I thought when they were making a substitution, I wanted Stokesy on just because he's a clinical finisher, and I'm a big fan. And when he brought Lasad on, I was disappointed. But I thought the energy that he brought to the final third, was excellent. And I thought the finish was technically great. And, I'm delighted in that respect. One thing I did wonder in terms of the people that listen to this show, which is an ongoing mystery to me, and I know you've mentioned this in plenty of shows, is creativity. As much as it was a good performance today, I still look at people like Dylan McGeoch, and I wonder why he's spending so much time out of the side. I know you guys were in Philadelphia when he played that night against Madrid and he got injured. But I thought for the time that he played, he was absolutely outstanding. He looked so comfortable on the ball. And, I thought when he came back from his injury, he was going to play a big part in this season. And, I wonder, sometimes you think, has there been a fallout with Lennon? Because he seems to have kind of dropped fairly down the pecking order. And, I'm hoping that he remains at the club, because the limited we've seen about him, I think he's a big talent. But that apart, delighted. And, an excellent crowd today.
It was, absolutely. That's a great point.
Really healthy attendance. And one other point, absolutely delighted you're coming over for the Champions League match. I don't know if you followed midweek with the queues at Celtic Park to get the remaining tickets was, incredible. And they were snapped up in an hour and a half. And, I think win, lose or draw, you probably couldn't have picked a better game to get your first taste of the Celtic experience, Graham. And, I'm delighted you'll be over, and I hope you're over by it.
Jerry, I several points I want to pick up on there. Thank you so much. First off, for welcoming me, and first off, we'll talk about the ticket issue, and specifically the lines that were outside of Celtic Park, and obviously there was some ill will and some supporters that were feeling hard done by, and that's perfectly understandable. I mean, it's really hard to come up with a system that's going to be useful and fair to everyone. I mean, with so much demand for this game and with so much excitement, it's almost impossible. And I have a lot of sympathy for the front office at Celtic. It's how do you partition this so that all sides feel that they're fairly done, and it's a tough one. For me personally, my opinion, I think that it may have been skewed a bit heavy towards season ticket holders, and I completely understand the plight of those who maybe couldn't afford the season ticket, and the season book prices have gone up, and with this economic climate right now, it's not affordable for everyone, and some people need to make choices about which games they go to and which they don't. And to think that now they don't even have a crack at some Champions League tickets that they're desperate to go to, I think is harsh, to say the least. And with that, I almost feel bad, because I'm fortunate enough to have a very good friend who is a seasoned book holder and has a seat waiting for me. And this is my first Celtic game at Celtic Park. So on the same token, it's so exciting, and I can't believe that I'm going to see Celtic for the first time in Celtic Park in such an important game. But I also feel bad, that there's so many people who are going to be shut out of this game and don't have the opportunity. And it's a tough one, But with that being said, I'm absolutely buzzing. I cannot wait to come over. I even remarked about this on the Celtic Dream Show last night, that I don't even understand. I am fully aware that I don't understand how big this is, and in my mind I already have built this up so much. I can't believe how important this is, and such a big game, and I can't. It's so big that I can't even sort of picture it of what it's going to look like. But I can't wait to get over it. It's going to be absolute magic. The other point that I want to pick up on that I think you're absolutely dead on about is with Dylan McGeoch. Now, we've lost a bit of our teeth and a bit of the spark that we had throughout the fall, and when we were most dangerous, especially in the Champions League, through James Forrest being out. I think that James Forrest delivers some pace, especially down the flanks, that we need to sort of stretch apart some of the sides that are going to sit back and try and have 8 in the box, 10 in the box, and sit back and wait for us to come and sort of clog things up. And without him, we don't have a ready-made answer in any way. It's almost as if we had a prototypical winger, so to speak, who can slash in. Chris Commons doesn't have the pace to be able to match up to what James Forrest would offer. The closest thing that I can see that we have at our disposal right now would be Dylan McGeoch. But you're right, he hasn't even gotten a look, and I don't know what the block is for Neil Lennon. I know that obviously Dylan McGeoch had some injury woes throughout the fall, and then especially he broke his jaw in Philadelphia, and we were there, we saw it, and we witnessed it live, and it was absolutely horrific. I'm just delighted that he's able to play football again after watching that live. But I would have thought at this point, given the fact that, like I said, James Forrest has not been available, that Dylan McGeoch would get a run out, especially in games, against the St. Mirren, against the St. Johnson, against, Ross County. Get him in there and see his utility in that James Forrest role, and we haven't seen it, not even, sparingly as a substitute. Now, talking about a creative, what you were alluding to as well, sort of creativity from the midfield. You're right. As the game went on, this was the reflection in the comment in the pub that the attack became more and more blunt. And it seemed as though, especially getting into the second half, you mentioned it was 2-1, and it injects a bit more sort of excitement and a bit more interest level into the game, because prior we were really running away with it. But, contrary to what we've done in the past, where we get a 2-goal lead. Think back to Dundee United last fall. We get a 2-0 lead up, and then, all of a sudden we let a goal in, and it's like, the nerves start kicking in, and things get tight, and next thing you know, we're level. We did exactly the opposite. We kicked on, and long may that last. Hopefully we can kick on from this result, use this as a guide going forward, because, that's really where our strength lies. Not so much, trying to protect leads, but trying to stretch the game and trying to, to play and to continue to play attacking football. But you're right, players like Dylan McGeoch, like James Forrest, and hopefully like Tam Rogic, who we just signed this week from Australia. From the looks of him, I think, we have a lot to look forward to in that regard as well.
Yeah, a couple of points, responses to that. On the ticket front, Graham, I think the club are on a hiding to nothing, because they could have sold that out. I think they could have sold 100,000 tickets without any problem. And there were big queues, and some people did miss out. But I think some of the people that I think have mumped and moaned about it all week, in some cases I think it's former season ticket holders who didn't renew their season ticket, partly because Sevco weren't in, and they thought that it would be a less attractive prospect this season in terms of us competing in the SPL. And, I think from my perspective, I renewed this season, bought a season ticket for my daughter as a gesture of loyalty. I knew that we wouldn't have too many big competitors in terms of trying to win the championship, but I felt it was imperative that all the supporters that could afford to go back to team, given that they made the right decision not to let Sevco back into the SPL and treat them as a new club. So in some respects, some of the people that didn't renew, that could afford to renew, that didn't, and are moaning about not getting a ticket the other night, I can't say that I'm hugely sympathetic to them, but I'm sympathetic to people that they couldn't afford to go. And that's always a shame. You want as many people to get along as you can. On your own situation, Graham, what I do hope is it's not an anticlimax for you, because we've come so far this season in Europe. I think what we've achieved has been beyond our wildest expectations, and I know you fancy us to beat Juve, and I think we've got a chance, but we are obviously dealing with an excellent side that could take us on and beat us on the night. But I'm still confident that overall you'll enjoy the experience, and I'm delighted. I think it's the Dundee United match you're going to afterwards, so if there's a chance to get a beer off you in that day, I would be delighted. And the last point about McGeoch and Rogic, one point I've got sympathy with in Neil Lennon's case, Graham, is that whilst I think he should be playing these players, the creative players, because that's the kind of football that I enjoy, when you look at some of the midfielders that are there, who would you drop? You wouldn't drop Victor in a minute. You wouldn't drop Ledley because he's got a goal threat and he's been outstanding. And you could go through almost the Charlie Mulgrew in terms of the chances he creates, set pieces and corners. You wouldn't drop him either. So we've got an embarrassment of riches as a club, probably more than we have for a long time. And it's not easy for Neil, but I do hope he finds the time to use Lennon and Rogic in the remainder of the season, because it will light up the rest of the season and will hopefully carry us to the treble and perhaps the last 8 and beyond, who knows. So I hope you enjoy it when you get here, Graham, and it'd be great to catch up.
Yep, definitely, Jerry. Thanks so much for calling in. We'll let you go, but absolutely, when I'm over, we'll be in touch, and I'll let you know. We'll have to put like GPS on me or something, So if you want to, stop by and have me buy you a beer or something, there'd be no problem at all. I'll be down in the Gallagate, I'm sure, all day before the Juve game, and I'm sure I'll be around before and after the Dundee United game as well. So it'd be great to catch up.
Yeah, I'll get a DM from you with your mobile number or Mr. Larkins, and we'll get a quick pint, Graham.
Magic.
Listen, enjoy the rest of the show. I'm off out with my better half for a bite to eat, so catch the rest of it on the podcast. Great stuff as always. Hail, hail.
Enjoy, pal. Thanks so much for calling in. We'll talk to you soon. That's Jerry McMahon getting in touch. Good man. Good points there, Rev. Now, obviously there was a furor this week with the £5 million bid for Gary Hooper, which I think was absolutely just insulting. Norwich are absolutely embarrassing themselves. I mean, just to start with, and then they come out today and they just lay down to Liverpool 5-0. I guess we can kiss the Norwich Celtic family goodbye, but. I mean, $5 million for Gary Hooper. They must be joking. Not only that, Neil Lennon comes out and he's obviously none too pleased at the fact that that figure was released and that there was a bid tabled. And he emphasized his preference to do his business in private. And I think this is very savvy on his part. He knows that there are going to be multiple suitors from multiple Celtic players over the next 18 months and hopefully indefinitely. And he wants to sort of stamp his authority on how this is going to go. You want to come to me and you want to get my players and you know that you're going to get good value each and every time, well, you're going to have to do things the right way. And releasing the figure that's being bid is not doing things that's acceptable for us. And I say Norwich was the party that had released this. It's my assumption. I mean, there was speculation. Was it Celtic? Was it somebody behind the scenes at Celtic? Was it Peter Lawwell? Was it Gary Hooper? Was it his agent? Whoever his agent is. I don't think it was any. I think it was Norwich. And, I mean, you can look to the fact that Norwich, right on their website, announced that they had tabled a bid for Danny Graham for $5.5 million. So they're in the business of making their bids for players, essentially. They're tapping up public. And based on that, I think you can make a reasonable assumption that it was them that had released this. Neil Lennon is none too happy about it. And quite frankly, Rev, let me ask you, and any listeners who are listening in, if you have an opinion about this Gary Hooper issue, about the play today, whatever, like I said earlier, Jerry just got in touch. Give us a call. Add us as a contact at Beyond the Waves. But Rev, let me ask you, Gary Hooper, I mean, being tabled a £5 million bid, right? He obviously wants to leave, for whatever reasons, financial reasons. It's rumored that Norwich have offered him £5,000 a week more than what our offer is, which, you can say, okay, you have one opportunity to make as much money as you possibly can to put yourself in a financial position, a certain level of comfort, if you will, and it's hard to let that opportunity pass by. But for an additional $5K a week, you're going to be essentially walking away from Champions League football indefinitely. You're walking away from the ability to win medals on a regular basis indefinitely. Let's be honest, Norwich would be quite fortunate, I think, to stay in the Premiership. Based on current form and based on their absolutely atrocious defensive display today, they don't need another striker. I mean, Grant Holt came out and was none too pleased at the fact that they are ready to splash the cash on two more strikers, essentially freezing him out. I think they'd do better with some more defenders. But what's your take on this, Gary Hooper? Is this even an issue? Is he leaving in this January window?
I certainly hope not. I don't think so. If I had to, put money down, I would go with no. I would hope that he would want to, at least for himself, for his own career, finish out this season and see how far he can go with Celtic. Because like you said, he's going to go to Norwich. He could kiss Champions League goodbye forever, maybe. If he takes a step down in in league placement, then that might hinder his career. He could possibly even say goodbye to England call-ups.
Exactly. That's an important point.
Yeah. I can't see him, getting a call-up there, and with, if he continues on his form now with Celtic, say for the next this season and into next season, I would be willing to say he could. I'd go out on a limb and say he can get the World Cup squad. He can be named to the World Cup squad.
Ooh.
I would say that. I would go on a limb. But if he goes to Norwich, yeah, no Champions League, no England, no World Cup, and that's. You got to think: is he then playing for the money? What does he want with his career? What's his goal? Because you can't even say, well, go there and then you're at least playing in the EPL or Championship, and then maybe playing in England's system for maybe 2 years, 3 years. Then you might get a call up to an offer from like a mid-level, mid-table EPL team, and that's going to be the best you hope for.
Yeah, a couple of points that I want to touch on here that I think were particularly salient. First off, if picture Gary Hooper and keep in mind, let's set the image of Key off to the side. Key wearing a Swansea jersey with that 32bet.com or whatever, roaming through the middle of the park at Swansea, looking around at a 30,000 seater stadium, thinking, my God, what the hell have I done? Now, just set that aside. Now let's picture Gary Hooper wearing the canary and whatever, the yellow and green for Norwich. Let's assume that they stay in the Premiership. Okay, through some semblance of miracle, he gets into the Premiership. He scores 15, maybe 20 goals. Do you think that he is going to have any greater likelihood of getting picked for the England side than he does now.
No.
Honestly. Of course not. Look at Grant Holt. Grant Holt has been, prolific at times scoring goals for Norwich. He's not getting a look. He's not getting on the plane. Obviously, he's a different style of striker to Gary Hooper. Gary Hooper's much more front to goal. Isn't quite as good in the air, at least over his entire body of work. He's a poacher. In the box, sort of. He cleans things up. He's the fox in the box, if you want to go there. But the likelihood that Norwich is going to stay in the Premiership for any sort of extended period of time is quite unlikely. Gary Hooper, very likely, if he was to go to Norwich in this January window, would likely find himself back in the Championship. Yes, making $5,000 more a week than he would have at Celtic, but he's not going to be playing against Barcelona. He's not going to be playing against Juventus. He's not winning any medals. And, for all of the plaudits and shower of praise that the EPL gets, I'm sorry, it's the most overrated just farce ever. The amount of showering of praise and self-adulation from the English press on that league is embarrassing, quite honestly. The perfect example of that is Pep Guardiola this week. It's announced that he's going to Bayern Munich, and the first thing the BBC puts up is he shunned English clubs, as if he was ever even considering them. Pep Guardiola never came out and said, I'm thinking about, England. Aside from the United job, I don't think he would ever even be interested in any of the nouveau riche.
And to be fair, say what you will about, Mourinho, but look what happened to him. He basically got chased out of the country.
But he is a special one.
So why do you think, Guardiola would get any special treatment, or that he'd be, kind of welcome in that regard?
You're absolutely correct. No question. Well, not even that, but look at what happened. Nigel Adkins this week gets sacked from Southampton in spite of losing 2 games this season. They're currently in 15th, which is superb from a newly promoted side, and I think he's done an excellent job. But he gets sacked, from another, sort of national conglomerate ownership group that really has no idea what the hell they're even doing. It's this global corporate model. If you're only as good as your last result, it's embarrassing. And I hope that Southampton get relegated now. But if you're Pep Guardiola or anybody else and you're looking at the EPL and you see that, why would you ever come to England? Why would you ever want to manage there? I think we're getting a little off track here, but Gary Hooper is not going anywhere. And everybody wants to say, Gary Hooper, you can F off, get the fuck, and all that kind of, let's all just take a deep breath. The consensus, I guess, or when you stop to gain some perspective about the entire situation, is Gary Hooper going to stay with Celtic for the rest of his career? No, probably not. He's not. He's English. He's from Essex. It's been his dream to play in the EPL, to play for the England national side his entire life. But does going to Norwich in this window get him any closer to fulfilling that dream? I don't think so.
I'm not going to go ahead and say that playing for Celtic will make that happen for him, but it makes it a more likely possibility. I'm not going to say that, you're the best player on Celtic, you're our best striker, you should automatically go and be in the starting 11 for whatever country you represent. I'm not going to go and say that, but, if you're going to put us and juxtapose us next to Norwich, I would pick someone from Celtic rather than Norwich. That's just common sense, I think.
No, I'm completely with you. I don't think that he's doing his prospects for playing for the England national side any harm by staying at Celtic. But I think that going to Norwich right now will essentially kill it permanently. He will never play for England if he goes to Norwich in this transfer window. No question. It is done. He has zero chance of ever playing and wearing the 3 lines on his chest. Why the hell anybody would ever want to do that, I have no idea. But, like I said, like I referred to before, he's from Essex, he's English, he wants to play for that team, he wants to wear the 3 lines, and he wants to play in the EPL. But, if he goes to Norwich in this window, first off, he's got capable strikers in front of him, so it's not like he's going to walk into that side. I really don't think he would. And it's not because he doesn't have the quality. I just think that, they look at on the display today. I was watching out of the corner of my eye. They are absolutely atrocious. And I think that they were industrious with Paul Lambert, in charge and how they used Grant Holt, and I think they got a lot out of that side. I think Chris Hughton has tried to be a bit more finessed with it, and that's had its peaks and troughs, and certainly they're going through a trough right now. It's not a given that Gary Hooper's going to walk into that Norwich side, and even if he does, that's going to be 6 months of playing in the EPL. They get relegated, and he's back in the Championship. And then who the hell's going to want Gary Hooper? We could buy him back for £2.2 million again.
What's the deal with him? Like, I know there's words saying, like, like you already touched on, like, he doesn't want to play here. He's not playing like someone who doesn't want to be here.
No, I'm referring to, there was a couple of tweets that were sent out. Matt McGlone sent out a tweet saying, it's obvious that he doesn't fancy, being at Celtic at the moment, and he's not really enjoying his football. Well, I think what today, if it did anything, it demonstrated to everybody that that's clearly not the case. I think there was a bit of speculation from Matt and from many others who looked at his latest performances and said, you know what, he's not into it. He's had his head turned, and he wants for the off. I don't think that we saw a performance today from a player that is in that mental mindset. Speaking of mental, we're now joined by Josh Gaffney, the purveyor of, well, he's the first official Rev hater, apparently, judging by the chat room, but the purveyor and the creator of the fantastic CelticTalk.org, as well as the linchpin behind Paradise Preview, which you can hear most midweeks here on Hail Hail Media. Hello, Josh Gaffney. Welcome to Beyond the Wave Celtic Football Show. Hail Hail, pal.
Hail, Graham and the Rev.
Josh, make some sense of this. We're trying to talk through this Gary Hooper sort of speculation. Is he staying or is he going?
I definitely don't think he'll be leaving in this window. I don't think Norwich is a realistic target. They're just too small of a club, I think, for Gary Hooper.
It doesn't make any sense. I mean, for $5 million extra, you'd think he would want to step up and play for, Liverpool, or a team that is going to contend, at some point, or certainly has a more comfortable spot in the Premiership.
Yeah, and I think the teams that are going to be seriously looking at him, I think they're going to be holding off because I think they're going to be more aware about the situation at Celtic. We're about to face Juventus in the last 16, so they're probably going to hold on and say, well, if we bid in January, then we can probably get them for a couple of million cheaper. But, I know it is the EPL. They do like to fund their cash about in irrational ways.
Exactly. And that was my next point. You hit the nail on the head. August 30th, every year, you always see stupid money flung about for this player or that. And I think that, we like to do that game even ourselves. Peter Lawwell likes to wait till the last day of the transfer window. Now, recently, he's done quite a bit of business, and fair play to him for that. But I think that we need to do a fair amount of exactly that in reverse and start making some of these Premiership clubs that are desperate for a quality player that would be affordable. Everton have sort of made their bones doing things like this. But even a team like West Brom going in for Shane Long and when they were in for Simon Cox, I think that there are clubs of that sort of profile who could come in at sort of the last second and put in a very, very healthy bid for Gary Hooper, in spite of the fact that he'd only have a year left or a season left on his contract.
Yeah, but looking at the league table in the Premier League, I don't know what teams they'd really go to at the moment. I mean, Man United, they're covered in the striker department. Man City, so Chelsea, probably no chance of going there. The only realistic teams that kind of got a chance that Hooper kind of go to is Tottenham, Everton, Arsenal and Liverpool.
Well, don't forget about Newcastle. Newcastle perennially...
I think they're relegation material. I mean, look at them, they're 21 points. One season wonders.
Yeah, you're probably right there. You're probably right, and it's a complete delight for me to hear and think that. But they do have some money to throw about. I'm not so sure that he would fit into a Martin O'Neill, and that's assuming Martin O'Neill is still with Sunderland next season. I have full faith, and I would hope that he'd be there, but. You're absolutely right. I mean, the top 5, 6 teams, you can't really see him walking into. But a team like West Brom, a team like now we're making all sorts of assumptions about who's going to be up, who's going to be down, and it's a bit cart before horse. But a team like Everton in that sort of mold, and I think even Liverpool, they're crying out for a striker, of some sort of semblance. Or obviously they have Suarez, they just picked up Sturridge, but it'll be interesting. Getting back to a more sort of Celtic centric discussion here, because it is easy to get off track. I don't think he's leaving in this window. I think everybody can relax, breathe a sigh of relief. I think Celtic would be absolutely mental if they did get rid of him, because we don't have a replacement. Shipping him out at this point is a 20 to 30 goal scorer who can score goals in the SPL, he can score goals in the Champions League, in all competitions, and we don't have any sort of ready-made replacement that can make up those goals. I think it would be mental. It certainly would throw the treble into jeopardy, and we might as well chuck the Champions League. If we did go ahead and sell him, I don't think there's any possibility whatsoever that he leaves. But let's leave that to a side. Now that we've come to this conclusion, Josh, the voice of reason, stepping in here. Let me ask you, Tam Rogic, our latest signing at this point. Now, he comes with all sorts of plaudits from a lot of our friends down under. Emil Heskey was sharing praise on the 20-year-old. He's an attacking midfielder, but he's got a bit of size. He's 6'2". So for a central attacking midfielder, a number 10, if you want to look up the definition of number 10 in the book or whatever, I think it can be sort of confirmed. This boy just ticks every box that you would want from that table setter. From that playmaker in the middle that can sort of create chances, that can make the bullets for a Gary Hooper to fire. He does quite well in spite of his size with his first touch, especially in traffic. He's got good vision and a good sense for the goal, and he's got a bit of pace. Especially not really so much that quick first step that you might expect from like Jamesy or Adam Matthews or even Ezagari, but he can change the velocity, to use a Gordon Strachanism, at a moment's notice. He can change pace here and there, and I think that's what this team is crying out for at the moment. What are your thoughts? Obviously we don't have much to go on other than testimonials and YouTube clips, but from what you've seen and what you've heard, what do you think of this signing?
I've not heard a massive amount about him, but I've seen some clips here and there, and it does look like a player that could fit into our side. I'm not sure if he'd get a sort of Chris Commons position just behind the strikers. So I don't know if Lennon's maybe planning to see if he can adapt him into a kind of Joe Ledley kind of role, using his 6'2" presence, being a physical presence on the pitch, and being able to take the ball forward, be sort of box-to-box player.
Yeah.
Maybe a contender against Scott Brown. Scott Brown hasn't really got much of a presence in there, unlike Tom Roderick.
Well, and not to cut you off, but this is a very important point. What Tom Roderick, I think, provides also that Ledley and Brown certainly do not. And keep in mind, with the expectation that Victor Wanyama is going to be going in the summer transfer window, that's obviously going to open up a spot in the center of the midfield. But what Roderick does with the obviously Ledley is 6 foot tall. Back to goal, he is exceptional. From the clips that I've seen of him, from a 20-year-old player, he can bring the ball down, and his first touch is extraordinary in that position, just over the halfway line, to try and hold up play and then distribute. That's really something that we haven't had. And the result of that is, when we have the most teeth is when we're on the break. And I think that he can do a lot for us when we have the majority of the possession, which has really been a shortcoming for us.
Yeah, he used to play futsal for Australia, and supposedly did really well at that, and then broke into the Australian national team side in professional football. So he's definitely got a lot of technical backing behind him, which we don't really have in midfield at the moment. We don't have someone who can really bring out the skills to pay the bills in the middle.
Oh, look at you. Well, we talked a little bit about Jamesy. He's obviously still out injured. Do you have any more clarity in terms of what's going on with him? It seems as though this season, just when he gets himself back fit and he plays 2 games, he's out injured again. What's going on with him?
Who's it again, sir?
Forrest.
Oh, James Forrest. I think he's just having a little bit of trouble with injuries. Sometimes it can happen to young players, and if you look at the case of Michael Johnson for Man City, ongoing injuries and injury has really devastated his career. Hopefully James Forrest can pull through it, keep on going to the gym, make sure he's fit, and secure a place in the team. I think we really do miss him because he just brings the pace, out wide, which would have actually been real effective today.
I agree.
But fortunately, we had Adam Matthews who could step in and bring that pace to stretch the Hearts back line, because their back four is terrible at dealing with people out wide.
They really are.
It got to the point where in the second half they changed tactics and they're basically putting 4 men out wide, but then that was opening space in the middle of the pitch, because the second half you're finding Chris Commons and Guy Hooper on the ball a lot more often in the middle of the pitch, and that it served them better playing that way, but in the end we still won 4-1.
Well, and I think that also opened up a lot of opportunity for Lasad. Obviously you saw an opportunity for him to come on, and I think he did quite well in a substitute's role, really provided a bit of something different. And as you mentioned, with more space opening up in the center of the park, that's really where he can do his work and do the most damage. His finish was exceptional. I mean, just one touch, bam, upper 90. We do love a bit of the upper 90 in these parts. So, fair play to him. He's obviously going to be a favorite of ours to keep an eye on. Stokesy didn't get a run out today, which, I guess in a way may be not so surprising. I think that Neil Lennon, in this run of games going into the Juventus tie, I think that he's going to want to go with players that he's looking to play. And I'm not so sure that, even if Stokesy was fit, I'm not sure that he would trust him. It seems as though his profile, even in the past, was that in the big games he didn't trust Stokesy. Stokesy was good for those League Cup ties, maybe some of the Cup ties, and we're going to have some of them coming up, and that might be a good use for Stokesy, because it always seems like he just goes off like on a hat trick, away to Peterhead, if you think back to that, and that's something that it has a huge utility. If we're chasing the treble, we're going to need to win those games. We're going to need to be effective in those games. So Stokesy's going to need to come in. But in terms of the SPL ties, and for the majority, I'm not so sure that Stokesy is even going to get a run out. I know a lot of people were really excited by him returning, especially on Tuesday. He's training back and he's available for each game, you would suspect at this point. How much of Stokesy are you expecting to see?
Well, as what we've seen with Izaguirre, Chris Commons, under Neil Lennon, after injuries have came out as different sort of players. Maybe not always, as good a player, but I think Stokes, after being out for so long, I think we might see a little bit of a different Stokes. He might not be as prolific, but hopefully he can be a little bit more consistent and, do better in the big games. Perhaps, just really reviewing how he plays the game when he's out all the months, just really looking at all the games that had a bad game and point out, what really didn't go for him in that game. Just review how he performed at Celtic so far and see what he can improve on and work on it on the training ground, and hopefully bring it to the side if he gets a start again. So I'm looking forward to him getting a start, but I'm not sure if he's got to play against Juventus. I think that might be a bit too early. I
agree. I just don't think that, barring any sort of God forbid any sort of extensive injury, that any of our strike. I mean, think of not. I don't even want to say deep, because it's not really the correct term. I mean, we do have a lot of strikers on sort of available at this point, but they're all sort of different players. I mean, Bangura came back. Yes, he scored a goal. Seemed to be a bit more in the mood when he went back to AIK, but that's still sort of that's a chemistry set. We're just sort of mixing things together and seeing if it sticks. And I'm not so sure that Bangura that we can expect anything. I mean, we're still on training wheels with him, so we'll put him to one side for a second. But Tony Watt, obviously, we've seen some brilliance and absolute magic coming from him when he's had opportunities to step in. But we haven't had an opportunity to see Tony Watt over the duration. When we think about who the replacement for Hooper is going to be, and we're going to need a replacement, Tony Watt is the natural. He plays in a similar sort of style. I think Tony Watt maybe does some additional things to what Gary Hooper really specializes on. Maybe Gary Hooper is a bit more one-dimensional than Tony Watt, or certainly what Tony Watt's potential is. But we haven't seen Tony Watt over a span of an entire fall, or a run or a stretch of 7 or 8 games. Because I mean, especially strikers, they go through peaks and troughs. They go through ruts, where they lose their confidence, or they're just not getting the service. And we haven't seen him go through that yet. So we don't really know, is he going to be capable of being that replacement for Hooper? So with that, there's a bit of a question mark, and I would probably put him behind Stokes because we know that Stokes can step in and he can be effective in a lot of these games. Samaras, I also throw to one side because I just think that he's a different type of player. And if you want to call him a striker, he's a different striker. If you put him up by himself, which I think is probably the lesser of two evils, or in a partnership role with somebody other than Hooper, it just doesn't work. I mean, throughout the 5 years that he's been with Celtic, almost 6 years, time and again they've tried that formula and it's never come through. So, with that being said, I think Stokesy has a role there. When you sort of analyze this, but like you said, I don't think that we can expect to see him against Juventus. But what does Stokesy bring in sort of the run of play and the break? I think that he and Hooper, almost have that ESP, that nonverbal communication. They know when each other are going to break. They know sort of instinctively how to time their runs so that they can slip that through ball in, get one or the other behind the defenders, and then put it away. Aside from the 1-2s that they've linked up with so well just outside the box, it's been completely absent since Stokesy's been injured, and even going back into last season when Stokesy really wasn't getting a run of games. So Stokesy's another one of the fall guys, so to speak. You have Izzy. A lot of people want to jump on Izzy and say that we need to get shot at him in the summer, which I think is absolutely mental. I don't know who people want to replace him with, but I think he gets far too much stick for what is warranted. Yes, he's not the SPL Player of the Year player. He's not at that level anymore that he was 2 years ago, but he's still a very, very good left back. We went for years sort of cursing our luck of, we brought in Lee Naylor, Telfer had, few good games. Danny Fox was absolutely atrocious. I mean, and then it was sort of mix and match. Mark Wilson being put over there or whatever. He's still a very good left back. A lot of people like to sort of slag Paddy McCourt, and Paddy McCourt might be gone sooner rather than later because, Tam Rogic is another nail in the Paddy McCourt Celtic career coffin. There's still only so much space. So Paddy McCourt's another one of the fall guys, but then Anthony Stokes is another one where I just sort of scratch my head. I mean, where is this coming from? There's all sorts of logic that gets thrown out there, and then there's plenty of evidence to negate that. But people don't change their minds for whatever reason. And my mind's made up. I think that he has a very valuable and valid role within the side, and I'm looking forward to him getting back into the side and rediscovering his scoring boots.
Yeah, the thing that really interests me about Stokes, as he's set-up play, people don't really realise how much he is involved in some of the final balls. Last season, he had 12 assists in 25 games, so he's getting an assist every second game, and it can just be something as simple as being the middleman in the passing move and putting in the final ball for Guy Hooper. And Guy Hooper as well had 8 assists. But basically, it was a partnership. Anthony Stokes was assisting Hooper, and Hooper was giving balls in for Stokes.
Exactly.
So he's not just there to score goals; he can assist.
Oh, he's
as well.
He's a ready-made partner for Gary Hooper, and in many ways, Gary Hooper, like you just said, is a ready-made partner for Anthony Stokes as well. And I'm not slagging Sammy by saying this, but Sammy just doesn't do that. You can't count on Sammy of having a good first touch, having the instinct to sort of slide a pass through. Sammy is an open sort of an open space type player down the flank. Try and work some service into the box and maybe get a corner out of it. And he's been exceptional from set pieces and corners in the Champions League. His presence and his performance has been invaluable, but he's not the same type of player and type of striker. And it just Neil Lennon himself talks about horses for courses, and it just doesn't work in certain circumstances, and that's okay. We were talking a little bit earlier with Jerry about the job that Neil Lennon has and how challenging it must be with so much talent there. He has decisions to make. Well, do you drop Ledley? Do you drop Wanyama? Who do you drop? He has so many players who are undroppable, but that's what a top flight manager needs to do. Think about Alex Ferguson. He has no problem going in and telling a player, right, you're sitting this game out. And it doesn't matter who it is. He'll tell any player, Wayne Rooney, you're sitting this one out. And those are the decisions that need to be made. They need to sort of hang their neck out there in a way.
Yeah.
And it's for the players' benefit as much as for the team itself. Go ahead.
An interesting thing I noticed today is, when Celtic scored, I think it was the third goal against Hearts, Neil Lennon was still at sidelines shouting his side on.
Yep.
And some games I haven't seen that, where I've kind of been expecting them to do it, where, or maybe just, against Dundee United was a prime example, where, we're 2-0 up and Neil Lennon, he looked kind of happy with it.
Yeah.
The team on the pitch looked kind of happy with it, and then boom, it was 2-2. So I really like Neil Lennon as a manager. I think he's a good, he really interacts with the players well, but I think sometimes he just needs to be a little bit more critical, in front of them sometimes, and just maybe pull off one of the big guys.
I agree.
Like Alex Ferguson. But, I think it needs to come naturally to him, and I think it'll come with experience throughout the years. And I think he's gained a lot of experience this year, as he did the year before and the year before that. So he's getting better every year.
One thing that I've pointed out throughout Neil Lennon's body of work, so to speak, or his career so far, is that he has these slip-ups. And he has. I mean, I don't know that we can continue to call him a rookie manager or sort of learning on the job. I mean, he's going into his third season at this point. So at some point we need to take the training wheels off and critique him through the big boy pants lenses. And I think that we're getting to that stage. But one comment that I've had of Neil Lennon across the time that he's been Celtic manager is when he makes these mistakes, or when he has these sort of learning opportunities, he always corrects it. He always learns from it. He makes an adjustment, and you don't see the consistency. Think back to Tony Mowbray. I mean, there's every single game. 5 strikers out there, absolutely nothing in the central midfield. You could land a 747, straight across the center circle. There was so much space open, and it was every single game taking it on the chin and blah 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 blah. Neil Lennon, he makes a mistake, he corrects it, and you're absolutely right. I referred to it earlier in the show. The first thing that my thought went to was that 2-0 state. That Dundee United game where we wound up, getting a 2-2 draw, when we had a 2-0 advantage. And that was, obviously a game when loads of folks were lining up to slag Paddy. But my first thought went to that. Oh boy, here we go. And like you said, after that third goal went in, he was spurring the troops on. He was getting them fired up, and you didn't see that from that Dundee United game. And I think that the team learned from that experience, and I think Neil Lennon learned from that experience. And I rate Neil Lennon very, very high for that very fact. You know that you can count on him being more, and the way that I've described him since he stepped in, and the contrast between Mowbray. Obviously, it's easiest to compare to Mowbray because he was the most recent sort of predecessor. But Mowbray was an idealist. My system will work no matter what, no matter who we're playing against, if my players go out and execute the way that I want them to execute. It doesn't matter who the players are. Doesn't matter what the conditions of the pitch are. If they go out and they execute what I set out, we will beat every team that we go up against. And if you don't get a good result, the players didn't execute. And then he slagged the players in the press. What Neil Lennon does is he's a pragmatist. Right. We have this type of player. We're going to play to a sort of way that suits these players the best. And we're going to set up to match up against whoever the opponent is, so that we can maximize our strengths and minimize our weaknesses and take advantage of whatever the opponent's weaknesses are. And I think that's really the sort of blue ribbon on his CV. He proves it time and again, and I love to see that today. I was really proud of the result. Not just going out and pumping hearts, but the way that we did it.
Yeah. I think that the Champions League games this season have really brought him a lot of experience as well, and hopefully he can build on that in Europe as well. I mean, I don't know what you're personally expecting from the game against Juventus.
We're going to be there.
Yeah, there's a lot of fans that are quite confident about that.
Laugh all you want.
But in terms of next season's Champions League, if Hooper and Wanyama leaves, and maybe in Fraser Forster, when you think about it, if they 3 big players leave, it'd be a real test of character for Neil Lennon to see if he could create another side that could do it just as well as they have this season.
It's going to be interesting to see. It's a bit early to start speculating on what's going to happen in say July when we're going to have qualifiers to get into the Champions League. Remember, we're not certainly even going to get an automatic even into the playoffs. We're going to really have to play our way into the Champions League as we did this past summer, and we are going to lose players, like you said. How he's going to address it, I have no idea. I mean, it's going to probably be his hardest task thus far as Celtic manager. But in terms of speculating, I think it's a bit early. But in terms of the Juve game, yes, I think we will win. And I'm not saying that sort of. Listen, you've listened to the show, and for people who've listened to the show consistently, you know that when there is cause to be sort of realistic, I won't say negative, but when sort of levity, I guess, or perspective or realism is required, I will give it to you. I'm not, just going to blow sunshine up everybody's ass. But evaluating everything that's in play at the moment, taking a look at our Champions League performance this past fall, and also taking a look at the plate of Juventus at the moment. And I'm glad that you brought this up. There's loads of folks out there that want to analyze I see Tony Cassidy, who's done a fantastic job. Please follow Tony Cassidy 123 on Twitter, because he's done a fantastic job at keeping everyone up to date on what's going on with Juventus, their results, their player transactions, etc. And that's a very valuable resource. But I think that there's a lot of reaction from people who talk about, Juventus, they just drew 1-1 in Serie A, so we're gonna. I think that's extremely foolish. I mean, if Juventus was looking at SPL tapes of us a month ago, they'd be laughing their asses off. And if that was what they were going to take from it. It takes a much more comprehensive analysis to really get a feel for what this is going to be like. And based on what I've looked at, based on not just looking at their current form and the players that they have available and how they play and how they may try and match up against us based on teams that they've played that are similar to us in the past. Throughout all that analysis, I think that we match up essentially level with them. They have, on paper, technically much more gifted players than we do. But when they come to Celtic Park, and not to get all wishy-washy and metaphysical and all that kind of stuff, but when they come to Celtic Park, you saw what happened against Barcelona. And I would expect, look at the ticket queue in midweek. I would expect nothing less than the atmosphere that was on display against Barcelona, the same to be the case against Juventus. I mean, I'm going to do everything that I possibly can, to do my part in being there. I count myself incredibly fortunate to be going. So I think that's an incredible equalizer and may tip the scales in our favor just a tad. But there's something special about this team, and you can point to the downs and sort of the struggles that this team has had in sort of intermittent points in this season, but they always find a way to claw back and to get what is necessary done. Rev, what are your thoughts? Get in here. I haven't heard from you in a little while. I want to make sure you're awake. The Juventus game. I mean, how are you feeling? Obviously, it's a bit of a ways off, but how are you feeling going into it? Is it I hope we can beat them, but it's going to be tough. I mean, do you see signs and very sort of realistic signs that yes, we can match up with Juventus and win?
I'm looking for a 1-1 draw. No, seriously.
Boring.
No, I'm hopeful. The way things have been going lately. Like you said, yeah. A month ago, looking at our domestic performance, that's not. I don't even want to talk about that. But the way we've kind of recouped from that and regrouped, and the trend that we've been setting lately, I'm a lot more hopeful. I can only see it getting better. I think, our team should be fit. Is Wanyama suspended for that game? Or, I forget, was that only for... That was for the last Spartak game, right?
Yeah, it was from Benfica for Spartak, yes.
Okay, yeah. So we should be going with, knock on wood, with our
janitor.
Full squad. With Wanyama, the janitor.
It's so racist.
You're the one who's saying it. That's not...
Yeah, don't deflect. Keep going with your point.
No, we should be firing on all cylinders when we play them. And if I don't follow Serie A, I don't know how they're doing except for what you've said. So if it sounds like their stars, Pirlo is not doing so well, and they're going to be struggling a little bit, and that's good for us. It seems like the stars are hopefully aligning in our favor.
Mamma mia!
The point that I was making is, in some games the Champions League have been absolutely fantastic. The 2 games against Barcelona, for example, outstanding. But there has been some weaknesses that have been very evident. For example, the 2-1 loss away to Benfica, we got just punished for the whole game. We looked, there are some people even raising the question that did we even deserve to be there, even though we're gone through, because of how good Benfica did against us. I think
please.
It was
piss off.
They had 30 shots on target, so
and they didn't score any of them.
There's some weaknesses that I think Neil has to address, but I think he can address them in the future. I think Juventus will actually be easier than Benfica because Juventus will be looking to pressure a bit more, sort of like the Barcelona situation.
I think they're it's going to be more similar to Barcelona, but they're going to be a much slower pace. And as I detailed in my blog, sort of previewing what to expect from Juventus on iCeltic.net, I think we need to be cautious not to fall asleep at the wheel because that's Pirlo's tendency. He won't press a pass that he is not 100% convinced that he is going to complete, but he will lull you to sleep, and if you switch off for just 1 second, he will make you pay dearly. And if Vidal or Quagliarella are up for it in that game, they will make us pay. No question about it. I don't care if F.A. Ambrose is back. I don't care if Calvin Wilson is taking HGH and on the Lance Armstrong program. I don't care. They will make us pay. And as Tony Cassidy has pointed out, Vucinic is he's for me is a bit hot and cold. But if he is fit and if he is certainly in the mood, he will make us pay. So we cannot switch off even for a half a second. Similar to what we had with Barcelona. But Barcelona, it was apparent. It was right. It was ticky tack. It was bang 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 right in front of us. You couldn't switch off even for a second. Juventus will have more of a tendency to lull us into sleep, but there are opportunities with that. And I'm very confident.
Yeah, well, Juventus just scored. Paul Pogba scored a goal from about 35 yards. It was a really good goal. But yeah, I think Juventus is more comparable to the Barcelona game rather than the Benfica game, because against Benfica they were a faster playing side, but we were expected to attack more against them, and I just felt that we couldn't really maintain possession against Benfica. And I don't think maintaining possession will be as important against Juventus as it was against Barcelona, because we only had 20%.
Well, and we also played, which I thought was very sort of faulty from Neil Lennon. We played more of a 4-4-2 against Benfica, which I thought was very foolish. I thought that really left us quite a bit more exposed, especially as compared to the first tie with Benfica at Celtic Park. I think it's absolutely imperative that we're not going to have our midfield overrun. I think that was another lesson. We talk about the Dundee United lesson. I think that was another lesson in terms of European competition for Neil Lennon. I don't see him making that same mistake twice, especially with Juventus showing their hand. We know that they're going to come out with a 3-5-2. I think it's absolutely essential that we have 5 men in the midfield. If it be, sort of like that Christmas tree formation that was so effective against Spartak Moscow, which would be my preference, or even going with 3 at the back for ourselves. I think it's absolutely essential that we match man for man in that midfield, because that's where they're so dangerous.
Yeah, you've got Vidal, you've got Asmoa, and you've got Pirlo. A few of them are absolutely brilliant midfielders. Asmoa, he's not really actually mentioned that much, but he's sort of Victor Wanyama, Joe Ledley type player. Really works hard and presses the opposition.
and he's been out injured for a bit, and Quagliarella I think has taken more of the opportunity to drop back, and they have Joyvinko who's just sublime, especially for a tiny wee player, but lots of weapons. Listen, Josh, you're monopolizing my entire show. All right, get the hell out of here. No, okay. Josh, we love you. Thank you so much for calling in. What's the latest from CelticTalk.org, Hail Hail Media, Paradise Preview? Give us an update.
Well, we just had our last preview against the Hearts game there with Paradise Preview.
I think we both nailed it.
Yep. Well, I predicted a 2-1. I was 10 minutes away from it. You predicted a 3-1. You're 1 minute away from it.
Yeah. Tends to happen. I'm the 1 minute man. All right,
and then
Josh.
we've got Dundee United the midweek and St Mirren, so we'll probably do our preview for the St Mirren game.
All right, good. I'm on a roll. I can feel it. So we're gonna get the Paradise Preview going, and then hopefully we'll have the best goals of the year so far. A follow up to the 2 videos that we did last year, where we put them out on YouTube and people make fun of my accent, and apparently your accent as well. Yeah,
I suppose I'm Gary Tank Commander. I completely forgot about that video.
Yeah, well, I'm the the obnoxious Yank, but I mean everybody already knows that. And listen, there will be plenty of upper 90, I assure you.
Plenty of upper 90.
Fantastic, Josh. Cheers. Thanks so much. Hail, hail, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, pal.
Hail, hail.
Great stuff. Always love a bit of the gaffer. Rev, speaking of Tony Cassidy, geez, Tony Cassidy is like the absolute star of today's show. He is getting in touch, talking about Breck Shea. Obviously, pending a medical with Stoke, he'll be on his way. And I know that's a name that we've brought up on this show in the past. And I was high on him at some point, and I was hoping that Celtic would pick him up. He's a player that's very similar to Tam Rogic, in terms of the size that he has and the skill with the ball at his feet. He's more of a left-sided player than Rogic. Rogic seems as though he's more central. I don't really have a lot of recollection of Breck Shea playing through the middle. He's more of a down the flanks sort of threat, but absolutely just a cannon of a left foot, as does Rogic by all counts. 2.2 million, and this is exactly what I was talking about with Agudelo. I think that MLS holds on to these stars, these young players that they've hyped up so much, and they charge so much that I don't think it's worth our while to go after these players. Especially, perfect example, Tam Rogic from Australia. And listen, I want to be a homer. I want Celtic to get an American player, but I'm more in the interest of what's best for Celtic rather than I want an American to be on Celtic. Do you know what I mean? I mean, it's 2.2 million. I think is just far too much for Celtic to pay for what Breck Shea could offer. Give us your assessment. I mean, especially considering Breck Shea is a bit of a head case. He does have a bit of a disciplinary sort of streak against him, and getting into a bit of a conflict with his manager. Who I have a lot of respect for, and doesn't seem to really have that sort of relationship with his players. Give us your assessment of Breck Shea and sort of, a lot of what I just talked about.
No, head case is absolutely right, and no pun intended, but I mean, you just look at him, look at the head of hair on him, and you can tell he's a bit out there.
Well, the same with Agudelo.
Yeah, so like I've seen him play in person numerous times. He's going. What do you say about his disciplinary record? He is the kind of guy where he's playing on the wing and he keeps getting burned by somebody. Down a goal, he will make that tackle from behind, studs up, and try to break your leg. And I've seen him do it against New York. So that was 2 years ago. I think he's kind of grown up a little bit in that respect.
I don't know if he has.
You don't think so?
No. I mean, he's gotten, you think back to the MLS season this past summer, where, I mean, he was having confrontations on the touchline with Shellis Hyman, the manager of Dallas, who, like I mentioned, I mean, Shellis Hyman's a very sort of low-key, laid-back manager who isn't one of these, like, sort of get-in-your-face type guys. You add that to the examples that you brought up, where he's essentially going out to break people's legs. He's kicking balls at the linesmen deliberately trying to hurt them. I mean, he's mental.
Yeah. Imagine putting him at Celtic and then have him, pulling that crap with Lenny and just watch him just, I could picture, Lenny just, looking straight up at him because he probably, he's almost twice his size, but
he would kick his tits in.
Still just getting in his face. I haven't been in MLS mindset for a couple months now, so.
Oh, look at you.
I'm trying to think if 2.2 million pounds.
That's what it's rumored that Stoke is paying for Breck Shea.
Yeah, I'd say that's steep. I mean, so what? That's like almost $5 million, something about.
Yeah.
So anyway, $4 million, $5 million. I do think that's definitely on the upper end of what he's worth. But if it's Stoke and they got a little bit more money, they might be able to slash the cash.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're on a completely different scale. They can look to waste a bit more money than we can. We don't have the benefit of a 40 to 60 million pound a year income from TV. We have 1 million pound. But in terms of value, I just don't see it from him. And I think that Agudelo fits the exact same mold. Maybe not so much in terms of the head case profile. We've heard from several of the different podcasts that they don't know much about Agudelo. Check out a lot of our sort of archived podcasts. Rev and I have gone over this repeatedly. With Agudelo, it's not that we don't rate him for any other reason. Then we find his value for money is just not going to be there, and we could probably use our money much more wisely. When you think about
one of the most shocking things I saw, it was right after the latest thing, like a week and a half ago, saying we were going to be linked with him. Somebody found the YouTube clip of when Agudelo scored his goal against DC, where
that was from 3 years ago.
Yeah, it was like his first season, I think. He had the ball, he ran onto it, he flicked it up, and himself, and then volleyed it upper 90.
Upper 90.
I was at that game. I mean, don't get me wrong, amazing goal to see in person. And the highlight of it is great, but somebody found it, put it on YouTube, like, this is the guy we're going after, and it just spread like wildfire, and everyone just going like, oh, we're gonna he's gonna score 40 goals for us and this, that, and the other thing. I'm like, anyone with one clip can look great, but that's not the real player. That talent is there, that ability is there, but he's not doing that regularly, not at all.
Agree completely. Let's get one more call in here. It's a man who's probably familiar to most. Just want to make sure when we get him on. Man who I've labeled as the axis of all. Turn down your speakers.
Anyone with one clip can look great, but that's not the real player.
See, I hear myself talking again. It's like normal. But the voices aren't in my head; they're coming through my speakers. James Cameron, the purveyor of the Celtic Network, which I've labeled as the axis of all Celtic online media. That sounds like a term that George Bush would lay out about the Middle East or something. But anyway, I think it's much more benign than that. But James, how are you? Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. How are things?
Hi, Rev.
Say hello, Rev. That's what you do. Say hello. Okay, very nice. James, thank you so much for joining us. The Rev, I don't know if he's on the Benadryl again or what, but what were your thoughts on the game today? I mean, I think, we laid out a lot of sort of the feeling coming out of it. Gary Hooper, sharp as ever, obviously had fantastic service. Adam Matthews working his socks off, but you really couldn't give anybody less than pass marks, could you?
No, not really. Well, I've got a cheek, actually. I missed the first 20 minutes, which I firmly blame on Free Gelly Boy for keeping me up late.
All right, well then forget it. You can't come on the show then.
But anyway, that side, I thought we looked very comfortable, very crisp. Their goal, really, I mean, I don't know, I don't want to argue as a loser. I just feel that it's a deflection. It's one of these things that happen.
Yeah.
I never thought at any time they looked panicky. They stayed in control after a goal. Lasad was a great substitution, I think.
I agree. And it was good to see.
We're going to see more and more of him as the season progresses. I think Lennon's just taking his time, bringing him into Scottish football. And I think he can be an asset if we can keep a hold of him.
Agree completely. He does offer something a bit different, but, I think that's very useful at times. Like we were talking about before, his substitution coming on, he really did something a bit different, a bit more direct. When our attack seemed to get a bit more blunt. After that first 20 minutes, it looked like we were just going to run away with it. But we needed something a bit different, and you're right. I think his substitution was absolutely essential.
Yeah, I'm quite excited about the signings we've made so far.
What do you make of this Gershon? I mean, obviously, he comes from the Israel. I mean, well, he's coming from Standard Liège. He's an Israeli national player. He's another one of Dudu Dadan, or I like to call him Dudu da da da. But anyway, what do you make of this? I mean, he hasn't quite gotten a game with Standard Liège, who I would say is sort of beneath our level, both domestically and on a European sort of scale. He was loaned out to another sort of Belgian team, and got some games there. But I understand we need some cover and maybe some competition for Izzy. But in my mind, this is a glorified Badr El Kaddouri all over again. Are you more optimistic than me?
Well, I'm not really more optimistic than you. I think what you're saying is quite right. The proof will be in the pudding when we see him playing for Celtic. Izzy is, to my mind, is just starting to now look the player he was a couple of years ago before he got his injury.
I agree.
So he's going to have to be exceptional, and he's going to need to work hard if he wants to get in the team before him. Likewise, it's good for Izzy to have a bit of competition.
I agree.
It can only benefit, but really, I don't see we've got anything to lose, Graham. Really,
no, I think you're right. It's just a loan deal with the option to buy, and I understand I'm being harsh on him. I mean, I haven't seen him line up for Celtic at any point. We haven't seen him really at all. But there are certain signings and loan deals or what have you that really just spark your enthusiasm and really get you excited. And this isn't one of them.
But often these are the ones that sneak through. I mean, sometimes you sign somebody and you go, really? I mean, I remember when we signed Gary Hoop and I thought, what? Guy's the scum top. You know what I mean? What's he going to do for Celtic?
Well, and that's a good point. I mean, at this point, I think over the past couple of seasons, that's a good point of perspective. Over the past couple of seasons, when we get somebody that's coming in that's a signing, and we don't know who they are, we're almost more excited about them than these people. I mean, a player like Gershon, who comes from a big club a relatively big club, Liège, the Belgian league. It's like, oh God, this guy's going to be a flop. When we get the young kids from the middle of nowhere, we're like, yeah, this kid's going to have a bit of teeth. We trust the scouting department. They're going to be hungry and they're going to come in and do a job for us.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, it's the same as Victor. I mean, Victor came along and he was playing the second division for
German Beerschot in the Belgian second league. I mean, who the hell is watching the Belgian second league?
Exactly,
John Park. That's who.
He's fantastic, and they've seen a guy and thought, right, one more game a punt. And well, would you sell him for under 10 million?
Absolutely not. It starts at 12.
No way. You know what I mean? There's no way. As far as I'd like to stick my two bobs worth on about Gary Hooper, the transfer. Gary Hooper won't be leaving Celtic as transfer window. Neil Lennon had a talk with him last night, as far as I'm led to believe, and everybody made their positions clear. I think roughly what's come out of it is there's a deal on the table. You can sign it and extend your contract, or we'll let you go in the summer. But you better get your agent to make sure that a decent offer, at least £8 million comes in. And they've obviously put the point across that we all know as fans, which is blatantly obvious. Be very careful where you go, because playing in the Champions League, and let's not forget, scoring goals in the Champions League as well. He scored 4 goals. How long before what club do you join where you're going to get that? You know? And I think Hooper's got to, I think it's on Hooper now. He's got to really sit down and think, what do I want to do in my career? And he's the one now who's got to make a choice. And if he goes in the summer and we get a decent fee, obviously his previous club, I've got a sell-on clause, I still think we can make £4 or £5 million out of the original deal that we made.
No question.
And that's great because I know that at least half of that will go right into Lennoxtown, the academy.
Exactly. And you had a point to make about the younger players as well. I mean, what do you make of sort of the place that we are right now? Because obviously, you know, with a player like Rogic coming in, obviously he's 20 years old, but he does something that is a bit different to anything that we have at the moment. But, you know, as we stockpile players, and granted, we're buying fewer and fewer players with each transfer window, and, you know, who would ever think, but that's phenomenal. You know, we have so much talent coming through Lennoxtown, but how do these young players, first off, what do you make of the place that we're in right now in terms of youth development, and how do they find a place to crack the starting 11? We were talking a little bit earlier about, you know, Dylan McGeoch and his, I would guess, frustration in not being able to get a place in the starting 11. I mean, what needs to happen?
Well, I think back. I mean, I've been following Celtic in games that I can consciously remember.
Important point.
For 1970. And Jock Stein had a bit of a dilemma in the late 60s, early 70s.
Sure.
Where he had a group of players called the Quality Street Kids.
Yep.
That included the likes of Lee McCarry, Ken Dalglish and stuff. Now, from my memory,
Jock, players. God almighty.
Jock didn't throw these boys into the team. What he done was he gently integrated them. I think, and over that, since Stein left, to be honest with you, I would say that I've seen a lot of talent coming for the training ground, the youth system, through into the first team, guys like Mark McNally, etc., whose career has really ended up fizzling out because they were brought in too young and stuck as a main team fixture for too long at a young age, especially with pressure of playing for Celtic. And that demand, which is quite right. Every fan wants to see their team win every game. It doesn't happen, but that is a fact of life if you play for a club at Celtic. Mm-hmm. I think Lennon has got. I think he's been kind of told, look, your job's safe for say the next 3, 4, 5 years. I think he's got a long-term plan. I think what you'll find is we're 9 points ahead in the league just now. If we go on another, just keep stretching the win and run. Once we get over 15 points in the league, it's more or less done with. I can see Lennon then, like done at the end of last season. We'll maybe see more of Tony Watt. We'll maybe see McGeoch coming in, maybe see one of the Twaziks coming in and actually getting starting places and giving them more 90 minutes shifts on the field. And I would include, I know he's no one at home group, but that's the kind of feeling I'm going to get with Lassad as well. He might start getting more games. So I think Lennon's learning the lessons for the past, that it's all too easy to take good young players and ruin them by putting far too much on their shoulders. And give them a wee bit, just expose them bit by bit. And who's to say that this time next year that Tony Watt, Dylan McGeoch won't be fixtures on the team? So the thing is we educate them right, and we don't put too much on their shoulders at this age, because you've got to remember, Graham Leeds boys are 18, 19-year-old. You know, the whole football career's ahead of them. And it's Celtic spend a lot of money on developing youth talent, and it'd be enough a waste for the young players and the club if we ruin them by just constantly throwing them in. And I know earlier on you were discussing about, but at this point, well, who would you leave out? We do actually in Scotland, in Scottish football, we have an embarrassment of riches just now.
Well, specific to Celtic, especially.
Yeah, that's what I'm meaning. Within Celtic,
Yeah.
of an embarrassment of riches. Neil Lennon must have a headache when he's sitting down picking the teams. You think, Jesus, what's going to happen here?
No, you're absolutely right. In terms of and Josh just made this. Sort of took the point to the next level. And talking about Tony Watt, he's 19 years old. Danny Welbeck, who it seems like Ferguson's just been sort of trying to get bedded in forever, is 3 years older than him. So and you bring up a good point as well. I mean, I'm sort of clamoring, get McGeoch in there, get Watt in there. But some of these kids are more ready than others. You can't treat them like a commodity, and they see them every week, in training and how they interact. And Tony Watt doesn't know where Romania is, and I get that. Neither do I. But
can I be honest with you, Graham? Do you know the only thing I remember about who I would call Steaua Bucharest?
Right.
Is that they played in the most boring European Cup final I've ever watched in my life.
Was it 86?
I think it was against Barcelona.
In 86 or 87, I think.
And it was horrendous,
Terry Venables?
The top anti-football, it was disgusting.
Yeah.
So I'm quite happy and not to apologise about saying who is Steaua Bucharest or not. Bloody heard it. No.
Well, I think it was a bunch of bollocks at the end. The STV brought it down, and I don't think Celtic actually apologized. I hope not.
No, they did not, Graham. I mean it's a lot of rubbish. You mean to be honest with you, you guys can access. That's a great thing. You can access online Scottish media via the web, and I mean 90% of every story in every paper is bollocks. Especially this time of year. I mean, the Hooper one's been great because they've got nothing else to write about.
It's true. It is
true. And what I love about the way Celtic do their business is nobody knows who Celtic are actually after.
Well, and I was pointing that out earlier. I love the fact that Neil Lennon said and put his foot down and said this is unacceptable. Norwich releasing this figure and doing their business in public. You're absolutely right.
Norwich what they're trying to do is jeer their fans up because they've got rid of a good manager in Paul Lambert, right? I know he's having these trials just now at Aston Villa, but that's not part of your learning curve.
Poison chalice. I don't know who possibly could have picked up the pieces after Alex McLeish burnt and scorched the earth around Villa Park. But I digress, and I take your point. I mean, I have a lot of time for Chris Hughton. I wasn't surprised when they had good results against great teams, and they're going through a rough patch just now. But this sort of tapping up. I mean, you're right. They want to sort of get their fans, to be distracted. Exactly. It is a diversion tactic. But on the same level, it's tapping up. I mean, they are trying to turn one of our players' heads, and Neil Lennon is right to step up and say we don't do this in public.
I mean, that club that died last year, they got away with it for years. They would just follow the papers of who they were signing and what they were signing, and it came to nothing at the end of the day. It was just appeasing their fans, you know what I mean? But as I say, I'm very confident that Gary Hooper will be there at the end of the season.
No
I think what's going to happen, I don't know if he will sell a new deal, but if he doesn't sign a new deal, then Celtic will sell him in the summer, which is the best transfer market, no the winter. And make sure that they can maximise the profit, because come this summer, Hooper's got a year left in his contract. We don't want to get into a situation where he's under a year's contract and teams start going, well, we're not going to even talk to this guy until his contract's up, and we'll get him for nothing.
And a decision needs to be made one way or another, to your point, in the summer. It's either you sign a new contract or we're moving you on because we're not going to wait, like you said, and just let you go for nothing. But I think that what we need to do, obviously there's going to be plenty of reminders of what Gary Hooper will be sacrificing by leaving. We're going to have medals that we're going to pick up at the end of the season. And I'll repeat it again. Gary Hooper will never have the opportunity to fill his drawer with medals ever again once he walks out of Celtic Park. He will have the opportunity to play against Juventus, to play away in Turin with the eyes of the world upon him. That is the last time in his career, if he leaves Celtic Park, that he will have the opportunity to do that. And he will also have 4 more months of watching Ki Sung-young ramble about in the middle of the Swansea midfield, wondering whether or not they're going to stay in the Premiership, and then have to ask himself, was the extra 10 grand a week worth it?
I know. I mean, I thought about that when Key, and I thought, well, to be fair to Swansea, they are a progressive club. They're a decent team to watch, but it's no Celtic, and it's no even the Europa League. You know what I mean? You're not going to get that chance to put yourself on a platform where teams from abroad start looking at you. This is where Gary Hooper should stop and think just now. Exactly. If he stays with Celtic at the end of the season, he's got 2 matches against Juventus to show how good a player he is. Now, that could lead to clubs who maybe Italy or Spain saying, why don't you try it out here?
Well, and at the very least, everybody wants to talk about waiting till the summer, devaluing his transfer value. You know, that he'd have 6 months less in his contract, and therefore a lot of these sort of lower level Premiership clubs can put in a cheeky bid that would be $2 million less than they'd table right now. I don't buy that. You know, I look at the potential much more than the potential sacrifice. That's assuming that statement is assuming that Gary Hooper is not going to score any more goals this spring, or is just sort of going to continue on. If, like you said, if he does have a brilliant performance in the Champions League and he does push on and score 25, 30 goals in the SPL and finish out the league strong and win the treble, I don't see a sacrifice in the amount of money being bid for him, especially in the wider and more lucrative summer transfer window, like you pointed out.
Aye. If he signs an extended contract just now, we can still sell him in the summer.
Exactly.
But if he signs, say, a 3-year extension, his stock value rises in the summer.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
So Celtic are in a win-win situation.
Right.
Either club, this guy's got 3 years left, so we better put in £10 million.
Exactly right.
Or we've got Gary Hooper for another couple of years, and that's fine by me.
Exactly.
No. I think Celtic are in a very strong bargaining position just now, and I'm delighted to see it after Christ years of bloody misery.
I know it's.
They were really, really poor, and I just think I was watching a wee interview the other day with Fergus McCann, and just thinking how we've really kicked on since that wee man came over, and now I think the vision that Fergus had for us is starting to be fulfilled.
Yep.
A self-sustainable football club.
And a model for every club across Europe and throughout.
Europe, it's really good. I know for a fact, because I've got contacts inside the academy, that there is clubs for Europe sending people there to see what we're doing. Because some of the techniques we're using, and especially in sports science, psychology stuff, and the way we're treating the younger players, that we're giving them an education as well as training them as football players, so that if a career falls short, they've got something to fall back on. I think there's a lot of clubs have been sending their people there. They've been walking about Lennoxtown and thinking, well, this is the future. You know, they're not sending people there for a joke because it costs money.
No, exactly, and they're not sending people over to that newly formed club on the other side of Glasgow either. We can just we could just have.
I mean that they're a total irrelevance.
Yeah, no question.
That's the truth. It's no butter. It's no anything. They're a total.
No, it's reality. You're absolutely right.
It's a reality thing. They're a team in the third division. I don't think about any other team in the third division. Second division.
No.
The first division is quite a good league.
No, it is. It's very competitive and
it's a very competitive league.
Well, and you look at the analysis there. I mean, every team in that division has everything to play for. You know, and it's such a contrast to the SPL where it's almost like, you know, in the first division you have everything to gain, and in the SPL you have everything to lose. And the style of football exactly portrays that. The bottom six, I mean, it's no surprise that the split is so sort of divisive. The bottom six are always fighting it out, trying not to get relegated, whereas all the first division sides are like, well, you know, we might as well go for it because, I mean, worst case, we're not in the SPL anyway.
Aye, and there's teams who will be happy to be contending in the first division. There'll be that one hope that you get even a year in the Premier League where if you look after your finances properly, even if you get relegated, you should come out a more profitable and stable club than you went in. And I think the lessons learnt, there's a big clamour about Celtic moving to England and all the rest of it. I mean, forget that. It's not going to happen.
We're good here. We're good here.
We're fine. Clubs in the Premier League and throughout Scotland are now learning the financial realities of football in the modern day, and they're cutting their cloth to suit their word. They're starting to invest more and more in young players, and that's what we really need. And the EPL and even the Championship, for all the money gets pumped in there, year on year, I will bet you that less and less top quality youngsters come out of English football academies.
Yeah.
Because they can't progress into the first team because it's full, the same as the SPL was 10 years ago, it's full of overpaid, overhyped foreign players.
Yep. And, you know, like you said, the blueprint is being formed right now in Lennoxtown, you know, and that's the great sort of aspect and attribute that we have that we can hang our hat on, that we can be proud of. You know,
it's a long-term thing, Graham.
Yeah, no question. Speaking of long-term, listen, James, my wife is upstairs sharpening knives, and I'm terrified. I don't know what the hell it's about, but I'm right up against it. Whenever she starts sharpening knives, I get nervous. But listen, James, when I'm over, you know, we need to get linked up. I need to get your information because I definitely want to meet up and you know, just catch up while I'm over. I'd be absolutely superb.
I'll move having an elk, mate, to make sure I meet you.
Cheers. Thanks so much, James. Before you go, give the website a punt because I think it's important that the listeners go and visit.
Yeah, it's www.thecelticnetwork.com, and basically it's yellow pages of Celtic fan sites.
Perfect.
With no connection to Celtic. It's for the fans, by the fans, as you say in America. So that's what it's all about. Just come out and have a look at good Celtic blogs, media, Look Beyond the Waves and Hail Who Media, etc.
Perfect.
And if you want to sign your site up, or your podcast, blog, whatever, just get in touch with us.
Cheers, James. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much for calling in, pal.
Take care, Graham. Take care, Rev.
You too, man.
Hail.
Right. See you later. Hail.
Rev. People call in, they're like, hey, Rev. And it's like, what are you watching, hockey?
No, what's Swiss Briz?
Swiss Briz? What are you talking about?
Rizgalov already let in like 3 goals or something.
Oh. I see what you did there. Listen, Rev, I'm doing a Celtic podcast, okay? I don't have time for the Flyers right now.
The Flyers have time for the Flyers.
You're such a dick. All right, Rev, I think we're going to wrap it up. But
sure?
This is yeah, exactly. Now Chris Kuyava was like, yeah, we'll be here for another 45 minutes. Tony Wah! Tony Wah! No,
Speaking of which, can we bring up the club order issues and everything?
Go ahead.
I think that's something that people should know about.
Go ahead.
Well, it's not just me, but you know, another American.
We're talking about Kyle _ SUB or SUB SOB.
We
Bam,
both
Bam.
made orders around the same time.
La Isla Bonita.
What?
Go ahead.
Yeah. You threw me off there. When the Superstore was having their free worldwide shipping weekend, like, you know, second week of December, both made orders. Both of our orders disappeared. You know, since I think he ordered his like 2-3 days before mine, so right around the same time, about a week and a half ago, you know, we both sent messages saying that never received our orders, and they, declared it lost. They sent out replacements, or actually, well, for me, they sent out a replacement for him. I think he got his refunded and then placed the order directly. He called him up, and about 3 days after my replacement was posted, my original package arrives, and then the same thing for him. His original package arrived yesterday or today. So whatever's going on with, kit bag, I guess, running the superstore, I'm sure that the club is losing out on all these replacement orders, and it wasn't, my order was I had a jersey, which I'm actually getting to replace another jersey I had because it started to unravel. And I also had some other stuff in it, so there's other merchandise that they're just losing out on. So it's, I don't know.
So at this point, you have yourself, and then I know that we've talked to Yampi, who hasn't called in a couple weeks. I'm sure he's crying over the Flyers at this point, and it sounds like it's with good reason. But also, Kyle from the Philadelphia area. Bam Bam, who's a Madonna enthusiast. He loves a bit of the La Isla Bonita. But so you have a situation where Yampi has problems getting his shipment over from the Superstore. Kyle orders a jersey. Apparently it gets lost, and he has a dialogue with the Superstore, and they send it directly from Glasgow, directly from the Superstore. Well, it turns out that the original jersey shows up, and now he's getting a second jersey. So he's getting a jersey for free. The club goes through all sorts of additional expense to try and correct their wrongs. And, same thing happens to you. And in the meantime, we continue on with Kitbag, who are really fulfilling their moniker and their nickname that they've well earned, which is shitbag. I mean, the only solution to this is stop farming out these vital services to overseas fans to an inept organization. I think it's pretty open and shut.
Yeah, and there are sites like WorldSoccerShop.com. For example,
SoccerShop.com.
They're based in, I think, Atlanta, Georgia. You can get pretty much any, all the major teams. You get everything MLS. All the big, English teams. And recently they have Celtic jerseys, but they stopped doing customized jerseys for whatever reason. And you can't get the badges and the championship or Champions League sleeve patches. They don't do that anymore. So the only place is either if you know somebody, which I probably will have to do from now on, or you just get it directly from the Superstore site. And out of the 5 orders that I've made my, entire career as a Celtic fan, 4 of them had some, flagrant issue, and that's pretty disappointing.
Rev, listen to me. Don't give me this. You have to know somebody, and I don't know somebody. Okay, with the amount of positive fan mail that I get, that they love the Rev. People call in, they say hello to you. You don't even say hello back. You need to wake up here. Okay, we got a guy here who can tell you exactly how much you're loved. Deco, you're absolutely trying to get me divorced. We've got to keep it quick because I'm telling you, my wife is upstairs. She's sharpening knives. I'm terrified. But congratulations, first off. You got reelected for another term as president of the Aurora Celtic Supporters Club. So if you are north of Toronto at any point, you need to stop in and see them. I mean, you have to absolutely inspect a club. Feel the environment that is what would elect somebody like Deco as their president.
I think the membership are smoking wacky stuff because I was vice president for 2 years, I've been president for 2 years, and now I'm president for another 2 years. So I tell you, they must have been as high as a kite when they voted me back in.
Well, you couldn't be doing that bad of a job.
Well, I don't know. I'm a Jack Ian, so we'll leave it. We'll leave it at that.
Well, congratulations to you, pal. I'm sure that you're delighted.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. More headaches and not getting paid for it, but that's okay. It's a bit like yourself, a lot of fan mail coming your way, I see, and so, it is what it is. C'est la vie. We're here for a good time, not a long time. So
look, I'm the lightning rod. Exactly, I'm the lightning rod, and everybody showers praise on Rev, and that's just the way it is.
You know what? We love the Rev too. How can you say no to that big bald shiny head?
Oh, it's beautiful. I'll tell
you
you.
just can't. I gave it a rub in Philadelphia. It was good times. I tell you, good times.
Yeah, I mean,
now
listen,
I'm starting to feel like I should be in Soho or something, but however.
Well, listen, I think that's the end of your.
I had to come in here very quickly. You're talking about how bad the kit bag is and everything else is. My wife for Christmas got a hold of Seamus to try and get me the black jacket with the tricolour around the neck, right? Apparently, it's non-existable. You can't get it anymore. It doesn't exist. It's gone. If you have it, you're one of the few that has it. Seamus got a hold of his cousin or a friend or whoever it was in Derry.
Right.
And this just tells you how bad the Celtic FC shop, or I don't want to say marketing, but basically how bad they are. They found the last rather portly gentleman size.
I don't know who that could be for.
Black jacket with a tricolour around the neck. And it was somewhere, it was in East Kilbride, or it was somewhere over there.
Sauchiehall Street or something.
They said they'd send it over to the north. They send it over to the Derry store, right?
Yeah.
All was good in the hood, blah, 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 blah. I have no clue. It's a Christmas present. No clue whatsoever. This particular fella, Liam was his name, goes to the store. It's secured. It's in the store. Life is good. It's got his name on it. Boom, boom, boom. Christmas present. Life is good. He goes into the store. He says, "Yep, I'm here to collect the jacket." Sorry. It's gone. Sorry. Have a nice day.
What, they sold it to another portly gentleman?
They sold it to another portly gentleman.
Bastards.
Yeah. Whatever about kit bag, Jesus Christ, your name is on it. And they sold it. They gave it away, so poor old Deco.
Well,
I got a lump of coal in my stock.
In fairness, you should have made up a fake name. I mean, anything with Deco on it, that's going to be a high priority. That's going to be a hot commodity, I guess. If somebody sees Deco, right, I'll take that. I want to be flying.
Flying, exactly.
They're flying off the shelves.
Fair play, though. Fair play to them. They turned around and they said, "We'll give you this a different jacket for the same price." So can't really argue. Santi didn't send me a lump of coal. I just heard you say that, and I just thought, you know what? The way they do their selling, whatever. Yeah, they need to get their finger out. Give it to me. I'll sell it. No problem.
Deco, are you hosting Canadian Idol?
Oh, that's just me kids singing whatever it is, Disney Princess or something.
It's lovely.
Well, there you go. Well, thanks very much.
Last night on the Celtic Dream show, we had Seamus coming on, and I guess he gave the kid the game where they have to pick up dog shite. Yeah, well.
I
don't know what kind of game that is.
I heard all about the game.
I've heard trick or treat. I think that's more trick than treat.
Although I did buy a Barbie for my little girl, and it had a little Labrador, and the Labrador was pooing a hell of a lot.
That's disturbing.
Oh, here, listen to this. Here, go on, quick, sing it.
Go on, let's hear it.
What were you singing?
Oh, Canada,
our home and native land.
To pay to love in no one's command.
Through glory of Canada.
There's your Canadian Idol right there.
There you go. Big G's gonna listen back to this later, and he's gonna know. I guess it was Raymond or somebody that was on the chat last night talking about Canada's just French-speaking Americans. Oh no!
There you go. You got a little Irish Colleen singing the Canadian national anthem. Mm-hmm. Talk about a Celtic show, for fuck's sake. Oh, Jesus. Eventually, I'm probably the only one that swore on this show.
Deco.
Great display today. Very happy. Shitty own goal, but what can you say? The boys are back in town. We're back. And roll on February 12th. We're going to stuff the old Italian lady like a good old turkey on Christmas Day or Thanksgiving for you guys. And boom, boom, boom. Last date, here we come. Happy days.
Cheers, Deco. We'll talk to you soon.
What? I'm cut off? What? Are you Hugh Keevins?
I'm going to get
See, that's what you got to leave with now. You got to leave with the Super Scoreboard music.
Goodbye, Deco.
S.com.
Goodbye.
Cheers, lads. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
That's the second time this week that I've been called Hugh Keevins. I had somebody on Twitter, having a go saying you guys are just like Clyde. Yeah, just like Clyde. I have to go. I'm not getting paid for this. My wife is going to kill me. Rev, it's been real.
It has.
But 4 points. Well, 4-1, 3 points.
I wish we got 4 points for a win like that.
That'd be like the NBA, 4-pointer. If you win by like more than 2 goals, you get a 4-pointer.
Nice.
We got to go. Rev, thank you as always for joining us.
Yep.
All the best. Talk to you soon. Yeah,
I'll see you on Twitter tomorrow.
Listen, get caught up with your MLS. All right. You're taking a little time off.
All right.
No, you're doing fantastic. Everybody loves you. Everybody hates me, but that's the way it's gonna go.
Good cop, bad cop. That's our dynamic.
I'm a rather shitty cop. All right. So taking us out as always, Shane McGowan and the Pogues. Thank you to everybody for tuning in today. Hopefully it was enjoyable. I certainly enjoyed it. Thank you to everybody who called in, and we'll talk to you soon. For the Rev, I'm Graham Wilson. Hail, hail, and keep the faith. We'll talk to you soon.
The island, it is silent now, but the ghosts still haunt the waves. And a torch lights up a famished man who fortune could not save. Did you work upon the railroads? Did you ride the streets of crime? Were your dollars from the White House? Were they from the 5 and dime? Did the old songs start to cheer you? And did they still make you cry? Did you count the months and years? Or did your teardrops quickly dry? I know 15 was not to be on a copping ship. I came here and I never even got so far that they could change my name. Thousands are sailing across the western ocean to a land of opportunity that some of them will never see. Fortune prevailing across the western ocean, their bellies full, their spirits free. They'll break the chains of poverty and they'll dance. In Manhattan's desert twilight, in the dead of afternoon, we stepped hand in hand on Broadway, like the first men on the moon. And a blackbird broke the silence as you whistled, it's so sweet. And in Brendan Behan's footsteps, I danced up and down the street. And we said goodnight to Broadway, giving it our best regards. Tipped our hats to Mr. Cohen, dear old Times Square's favorite bird. Then we raised a